Dawn broke gently over the rustic town of Phandalin, illuminating the worn cobblestones and humble wooden structures in pale gold. Before continuing toward Thundertree and beyond, they had resolved to restock on supplies. The trio stepped inside the Lion Shield Costa, where Linene Greywind, ever watchful and sharp-eyed, took measure of them. The store was a mixture of polished shields, sheathed swords, and stacks of arrow quivers, each item a testament to the harshness of the frontier. Linene's appraisal shifted swiftly to Rowan, who paused in front of a neatly arranged display of shields. Rowan could not tear his gaze from a particularly well-crafted shield resting on a wooden stand. It bore a faint crest of a lion's head, polished until it gleamed under the store's lamplight. As a steadfast paladin, one who had weathered countless encounters, Rowan found an unspoken promise of security in that gleam. Linene waited for the inevitable question, but Rowan did not haggle. With subdued excitement, he purchased the shield at her asking price, accepting the comforting weight of steel on his arm. Meanwhile, Aeluin approached the counter, her arms occupied by 5 wolf pelts. The furs, though once valuable, carried an undeniably potent stench, thanks to the orc hideout at Wyvern Tor, where she had collected them. She laid them atop the wooden countertop, adopting her best diplomatic tone, but Linene merely leaned back with a wrinkled nose. She passed a token offer, a fraction of their potential worth. Aeluin, unwilling to settle, refused the paltry sum. The conversation ended politely but without profit. Tavin, ever strategic, combed the shelves for practical items. A tiefling monk who favoured precision and creative solutions, he selected a set of ball bearings, countless possibilities for either distractions or impediments, and several flasks of oil. When they concluded their business, she thanked them curtly, wishing them a safe journey wherever their road took them next. Barthen's provisions, the next stop, was mostly empty. Emilia Barthen stood behind the counter, her manner warmer than Linene's but no less shrewd. Tavin purchased a healing potion, and Aeluin again tried her luck at selling her wolf pelts, hoping the friendlier merchant might offer more. Indeed, Emilia made a slightly improved bid, yet it still fell short of what Aeluin believed the pelts deserved. Despite the pungent odour clinging to them, she refused to budge, tucking the pelts away. With their errands done, the trio returned to Darren Edomath's orchard. Waiting for them were 2 bound hobgoblins, Tonka and Zog, who had been locked away in Darren's closet for safekeeping. Tonka greeted them calmly, while Zog slumped in apparent disorientation, his eyes distant. As the group prepared to depart, Tavin examined Zog's condition with the critical eye of someone who had studied basic healing techniques. A swift conclusion, a likely traumatic brain injury, a residual effect of the party's past altercations. Concern furrowed Rowan's brow. The paladin felt a responsibility to mend wounds where possible. Together, Tavin and Rowan wove threads of divine magic around Zog's battered mind. At first, there was little response. Gradually, Zog's eyes cleared, confusion replaced emptiness. He looked to Tonka for explanation. The other hobgoblin quietly reiterated their agreed deal: guide the adventurers to Cragmore Castle in exchange for eventual freedom. Though still skeptical, Zog grudgingly accepted Tonka's word. After a short rest beneath the orchard's boughs, an ample sampling of the orchard's crisp apples, the group, hobgoblins in tow, departed Phandalin around midday. Their footsteps fell into an easy rhythm along the Triboar trail. Aeluin voiced the question: should they go directly to Thundertree, or first divert to Neverwinter, which was along the way? Deciding the city might offer resources, information, or both, they voted for a quick stop in Neverwinter. They travelled until the merging of the Triboar Trail and the lesser path to Phandalin. At that junction, dusk began to paint the sky in bruised oranges and purples. They made camp. When night finally embraced the land, Tavin took the first watch. Silence enveloped the wilderness, except for cicadas and distant owls. But an itch of paranoia settled upon the monk's senses. The hairs on the back of his neck rose. He paced the camp's perimeter, scanning with keen, devilish eyes. Yet he found no physical threat. Puzzled and still uneasy, Tavin tested the skies, unfolding his wings and launching himself upward. From that vantage, the unnerving sensation slipped away entirely. Upon returning to Earth, it crept back, though fainter than before. Certain that some intangible presence was stalking him, he finished his patrol but discovered no trespasser. Before rousing Aluin for her shift, he voiced his concerns, urging vigilance. The druid listened solemnly and kept watch with unwavering focus. Still, whatever had spooked Tavin did not resurface. The next day unfolded with the same long, dusty miles, the company forging north. By evening, they were just off the high road, setting up a modest camp in a copse of spindly trees. A soft hush lay over the forest, broken only by chirping insects. The group took turns standing watch. When it was Aluin's turn, she heard snuffling in the undergrowth, at first reminiscent of a pig, but heavier, more guttural. Guided by her druidic gift, she extended a gentle call to the unseen creature. A robust boar emerged from the shadows, sniffing the air greedily. Drawn by the aroma of apples, the boar displayed curiosity mixed with wariness. Upon noticing the hobgoblins, it bristled, relaying its distaste for the creatures. Aluin offered fresh apples and a promise that these sleeping hobgoblins posed no imminent threat. Satiated and somewhat appeased, the boar warned her of Thundertree, speaking of a foul stench that unnerved him whenever he dared approach. Then, with one last grunt, he lumbered back into the darkness. On the following afternoon, the group's journey culminated at the gates of Neverwinter, bustling with citizens, carts, and patrolling guards. The presence of a tiefling, a dragonborn, and 2 hobgoblins made for an unsettling sight, earning them suspicious sidelong glances. Determined to remain unbothered by the city's prejudices, they advanced into the twisting streets. Tavin suggested investigating Gundren Rockseeker's home first, suspecting that the dwarf's own residence could yield clues about his recent activities or possible abduction. Arriving at a modest house in a quiet district, they found it locked up tight. Dust coated the windows, and no footprints seemed recent. Rowan knocked, then attempted to test each window, jiggling frames and scanning for any that might be unlocked. A voice challenged them from behind. Turning, they saw a man in simple attire, an unimpressed frown marking his features. When Tavin explained their intentions, the man, Ron, softened, identifying himself as Gundren's neighbour. He disclosed that Gundren hadn't been seen for quite some time. Soldiers from Neverwinter had come knocking, then departed after no response. Ron suggested the Sleeping Dragon Taffhouse for lodging, offering them directions and remarking that a curly-haired man in a red cloak had been there spouting talk of business opportunities. The mention of a red cloak instantly piqued the group's interest, an image of Erlich Buckman flooding their minds. He was a fool they had encountered on the road, enthralled by the idea of the Red Brands. Wholly unaware the group itself had undone that gang's power in Phandalin. Night crept in as they took to the streets heading for the Taffhouse. In the dim light of flickering street torches, footfalls approached from behind. 4 men, armed with swords, closed in. One, presumably the leader, barked that tieflings, lizard folk, and hobgoblins had no place here and demanded payment in gold for the insult. Rowan's attempt to intimidate them with threats went awry. The men, now fully incensed, moved aggressively. Aluin reacted on instinct. Summoning the primal energies of storm and nature, she unleashed a booming thunder wave. Windows shattered, door frames collapsed, and 2 of the men nearest were hurled violently down the street, rolling until they scurried to their feet in sheer panic. The 2 behind them, though rocked by the spell's echo, remained on their feet. Rowan charged with sword in hand, the clang of steel on steel resounding through the thoroughfare. Tavin swiftly cut the bonds on Tonka and Zog, throwing swords to them. The hobgoblins, though once captive, sprang into action with the reflexes of trained warriors. Zog, newly freed from his mental fog, rushed in to back Rowan. Tonka expertly flanked another adversary, dispatching the man with a quick, lethal strike. Within minutes, the fight was over. The battered men either fled into the night or lay on the ground. Adrenaline rushed through their veins, but alarm bells now rang in the group's minds. The noise of the clash had woken the neighborhood. Voices carried from windows, and movement flickered up and down the street. Tavin urged everyone to vanish into the labyrinthine streets before any authorities arrived. They eventually found refuge at the Sleeping Dragon Taffhouse. As they entered, a hush fell among patrons, eyes narrowing in suspicion at hobgoblins among them. Tavin approached the innkeeper, requesting 3 rooms, 1 each for Aluin and Rowan, and 1 for himself and the hobgoblins. The innkeeper demanded double for the hobgoblins to keep them contained and monitored. Reluctantly, Tavin paid. Just as the tiefling turned from the bar, a familiar voice burst into exclamation. Erlich Buckman stood behind him, wearing his trademark cheerful grin. He wasted no time in boasting of his grand successes in recruiting for the Red Brands, apparently oblivious to their downfall in Phandalin. Tavin explained the truth. Glassstaff was gone, the Red Brands dismantled, but Erlich refused to believe him, insisting it must be some comedic ploy. Erlich then coaxed Tavin into buying him a drink, which the tiefling did, hoping to glean more details. Their conversation turned to Erlich's family, especially his business-minded son. Rowan and Tavin pleaded that he abandon this Red Brand scheme and return home. While Erlich acknowledged he should see his son soon, he made no promises about his so-called recruits. After Erlich left for his room, Aelwyn inquired with a tall patron at the bar, a fellow named Lanar, about Sildar Hallwinter. Lanar proposed that if the man was with the Lord's Alliance, he was likely near the castle district. A word of caution followed. A tiefling and hobgoblins might alarm the city's guards, complicating the matter. Tavin conversed with the barkeep, Bob, to test the waters of local rumor. Bob mentioned unusual soldier activity, increased drills and scurrying squads, but no specific gossip that might concern the group. The next morning, the barkeeper informed Tavin about 2 local vigilantes found dead in the street, no doubt referencing the confrontation hours prior. Unease weighed heavily on them, for the rumors pointed to magic use and shattered doors, a hallmark of Aelwyn's Thunderwave. Resolute in their decision, they departed for the castle district, crossing the main bridge. Aelwyn approached the gate alone, introducing herself and requesting Sildar. The guard, though suspicious, departed to deliver the message. Left with a second guard, Aelwyn spoke idly about Neverwinter's storied history. Soon enough, permission for an audience was granted. Aelwyn retrieved Rowan, Tavin, and the hobgoblins from their short wait down the road. The guards demanded all weapons be surrendered. The adventurers complied. Led through wide, well-appointed corridors, they arrived at an ornate waiting room. Thick carpets and gilded sconces spoke of wealth and power. Soon, Sildar Hallwinter swept in. Surprised to see hobgoblins among friends, he quickly overcame his initial shock. Aelwyn offered that they had come to check on him and also to deliver critical news. Gundren was reportedly held at Cragmore Castle, with Tonka and Zog prepared to guide them there. Sildar expressed deep relief that Gundren's whereabouts were no longer a mystery. In the ensuing conversation, the group learned Sildar was in Neverwinter to train an entire unit, 50 soldiers, under Lord Neverember's directive. The plan: secure Phandalin and chase the promise of the lost mine of the Phandelver Pact. Tavin, sensing seeds of political ambition, argued that a full-scale occupation was needless. Sildar countered, explaining that Harbin Wester was nowhere to be found, rumors of banditry remained, and lawfulness needed reasserting. The tension thickened until Sildar proposed introducing them to Lord Neverember himself. They found Lord Dagult Neverember upon a regal throne, his presence both commanding and shrewd. He welcomed the adventurers with effusive gratitude, referencing their contributions to quelling the Red Brand threat. Gold was produced, 100 coins each. Intrigue danced in the Lord's eyes as Tavin described Gundren's probable knowledge of the mine's secret location. If the dwarf was rescued, there might be less need for an extensive troop presence in Phandalin. Sensing reason, Lord Neverember agreed in principle, though insisted on dispatching at least a token garrison, unwilling to relinquish full authority. While Rowan and Aelwyn found relief in this compromise, Tavin suppressed his reservations about wading into deeper political waters. Finally, Lord Neverember offered additional support for their infiltration of Cragmore Castle. Rowan and Aelwyn, foreseeing a challenge, accepted the suggestion. Tavin urged a small, specialized group, no more than 3 soldiers. The Lord consented. Sildar soon presented them with a triad of seasoned guards, each bearing the emblem of Neverwinter: Captain Dane Harrowmark, Sergeant Aldrich Vane, and Corporal Gregor Dern. The men saluted, stoic but earnest, ready to prove their worth. Thus concluded the audience. Hobgoblins in tow, they left the castle. Aelwyn, still burdened by her unsold wolf pelts, tried another shop in a side district, only to be refused outright. The stench was apparently too pungent even for a discounted price. Exasperated, the group gathered near the city's docks. If they aimed to glean more about Cragmore Castle from someone outside Tonka and Zog, Thundertree was the next logical step. Rumours spoke of a druid or hermit with knowledge of the region's ruins. Captain Dane, eager to fulfill his duties, explained that with the Lord's resources, they could secure a few boats to head upriver, drastically reducing their travel time. He swiftly paid a group of fishermen, whose rough hands and hardened faces betrayed a life on the waters, to grant them use of 3 small boats. The soldiers worked efficiently, loading gear, provisions, and a few personal supplies. And so the group embarked on calm waters beneath the midday sun, drifting away from Neverwinter's skyline. The tension of politics, the flickers of prejudice, and the hazards of nighttime altercations were left behind. Yet the sense of looming threat did not vanish. Gundren's fate, the ominous mention of the spider, the potential for trouble in Phandalin, and even the sulfuric odours rumoured near Thundertree weighed on them.